Welcome back. Now we're actually going to continue with our page, and we're going to add to this the actual clicks per second counter. So if you remember, our design was like this, and we're displaying. That's not what I want to do. Why can't I drag here? Okay, I can't drag this, so we're gonna stick with this the way it is. So we displayed these clicks, but we also want to calculate your CPS. So somewhere here, we also might want to say, number of times you click, but we want to say something like your, you know what, I'm not going to do it in red because it looks different. Why don't we just do it in green? Something like your clicks per second is, and we'll say something like what? 8.1 CPS, something like that. So this is what we're going to implement now. So how are we going to do this? Again, let's start with how would we calculate it in our mind, so to speak, and then we're going to translate it to a program. Let's open the whiteboard and do that. First, let's figure out how do we actually calculate clicks per second. So let me ask you this. If you do 10 clicks, my goodness, I can't write, 10 clicks in 1 second, well, how many clicks can you do per second? Well, it's not difficult. It is basically 10 clicks, or 10 CPS, right? What if you do 20 clicks in 2 seconds? Well, that is also 10 clicks per second. So what do we do here? What mathematical formula do we do to get this number? How do we do this? And it's not that difficult. You take the number of clicks, you do 10, and divide by number of seconds. That is equals to 10. Here we take 20 clicks, divide by 2 seconds. 20 divided by 2. Well, that's also 10. So what is the formula? We do number of clicks divided by seconds, right? So number of, actually I just put number of clicks divided by seconds. So in our code, do we store the number of clicks somewhere? Let's take a look. Let's look back to our code. Well, we actually do. We have this variable called x, and this variable basically remembers how many times the button was clicked. So we do have number of clicks. Let's see if I can. No, I can't. Of course not. Right, so we have. Why don't we take a different color? Come on. Okay. It doesn't want to work. So it got stuck. All right. Is it better? Okay. Now I got better. So number of clicks is x divided by, but wait a minute, we don't have seconds. So what are we going to do? How about we tell the person that he has to that they have to keep clicking for 5 seconds. And at the end of the 5 seconds, we're going to divide the number of clicks by 5. So if the person, for example, gets 15 clicks divided by 5, which means that his clicks per second is 5 CPS. Hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please put a comment. And and we'll address that. So let's go back to our code. Now, how do we get this 5 seconds thing? We know how to count clicks, but how to count seconds? Well, what would you do if you were doing it on a piece of paper? Let's just say a person, and you would say, person, go ahead, write as quickly as you can. Write number 1 as quickly as you can, and we'll count who can write more ones in 5 seconds. You would probably measure the time somehow. Maybe you would go to Google and type in something like 5-second timer. Look at that. We have a timer, and once it finishes, it goes to 0. So let's reset and start. So the person would start writing on a piece of paper, and then you say, keep going, ready, and stop. And it beeps at you. Okay? Well, we can actually do the same thing in code. We can basically have a timer run, and when the timer completes, well, then we'll have an event fire. We talked about the events, right? We talked about how this clicking on this is an event, how moving a mouse over a button is an event. All these events occur, and when an event occurs, we can have a bunch of code be run. So when this got clicked, we have this code running. Well, we could do the same thing with a timer. We can set up a timer that in 5 seconds will run a special part of code. Let me show you how that's done. We do this by using a function called setTimeout. So we do something like this: set timeout. See how it appears as one of the things I can do. So I can hit tab to finish it. And timeout takes 2 what we call parameters. Just like the event listener took 2 parameters. So it says what kind of an event you want to listen to, and what code do you want to run when that event fires or occurs. Well, timeout does the same thing. First, it takes what kind of a code you want to run, and we're going to create a function for it. We're going to call it time is up. How about that? And a second, it takes a number of seconds, but it does so in milliseconds. So 5 seconds is equal to 5,000 milliseconds, ms. It's just like, 1 meter or 1 kilometer equals 1,000 meters. So that's basically what it is. So if you want to say 5 seconds, you have to put 5,000. Every second is 1,000 milliseconds. And we'll have to add a function that will take care of this. So function, and it has to be the same as this. So I'm going to copy it so I don't make a mistake. Paste, open, close, brackets, squirrely brackets. And inside here, I can put what this is the code that's going to run once the timer's 5 seconds is up. So when we're looking at this and a timer finished, it, for example, had the sound, like basically alarm sound. Well, we can do something similar. We're not going to do sound, but why don't we pop up an alert box? And we'll say time 5 seconds are done, or finished, or up, whatever we want to say. And I'm going to Control S, save it. Now I'm going to come here and I'm going to refresh. Now, what's happening? Is the timer running? Well, it should be. And look, 5 seconds passed. The timer, of course, is running whenever I refresh the page. Why? It's because whenever I refresh the page, all of this code runs. So first this line will run, then this line, and eventually this line. The code inside these functions does not run right away. It only runs when one of these code blocks is executed, or when it's run because of some kind of an event. So here we had a click event. So when the click happens, this code runs, and then we have this timer after 5 seconds, this code runs. So after the 5 seconds are up, and we want to calculate the CPS. How do we calculate this? Well, we just figured this out. It is basically number of clicks divided by the number of seconds. Well, we know that seconds are going to be 5 because 5 seconds has passed when the timer fires. So why don't we say the var we call CPS. This is the name of the variable, and the name of the variable could be anything. It could be something like this, but typically we want something that makes sense. So I'll say your CPS is equal to what? So how do we calculate? Well, number of clicks divided by seconds. So again, it's kind of a weird thing, but we take the number of clicks and we divide it by 5, the number of seconds. So if this is 20 clicks, then your CPS will be 4. 20 divided by 5 is 4. And we'll take that 4 and we'll put it inside this variable. Now let me just briefly explain this. So this thing right here. Oops, I don't want it so big, do we? No, we don't want it so big. It's okay, we can make it smaller. Oops, where did it go? So remember, when you create this variable, whoops, my goodness, I'm just messing up. When you create this variable CPS and you say equals something here, what you're saying is, I create a bucket, okay? A bucket that can put stuff into it, and take whatever's on this side and put it inside that bucket. So x divided by 5. So when you say, say something like var a equals 3, what you're saying is take everything that's here and put it inside A, inside the A's bucket. So 3 appears here. So I hope that makes sense. If not, please do say so in the comments. So this, after the 5 seconds are up, your CPS variable will contain the clicks per second. So now we want to display it. Where? Well, how about we take this code here and we say your CPS is, and well, we have to use this variable, so I'm going to copy it and replace the x, and we're going to say your CPS is whatever it would be after the calculation. Let's run it and let's see if it works. So save, refresh, and number of clicks. Okay, wait, it happened, but unfortunately, let me just click here and let's stop. Let's wait until 5 seconds are up. Aha, your CPS is 1.4. But the problem is that if I click it again, well, then this code will be run, and we will replace the message with this number of clicks. So if I click again, it's going to say number of clicks 8. So that's not the best, but at least it's working. So let's go again. We click a bunch of times. Okay, stop. 5 seconds up, and there it is. So let's go ahead and implement this. And I'm going to take a screenshot to highlight what you must change. So you have to do the set timeout. Again, be careful for the capitalization. The T here is capital, set timeout. Time is up 500, and you have to create this whole function. You're going to be very, very careful. Okay, come back when you're ready and make sure you test, obviously, to make sure it's working the way it was working here. So let's now make it so that this area here, when we click number of clicks, that we don't have two messages in the same box. So when I click now, it says number of clicks 13. And I think we need to have two lines, one for displaying number of clicks and one for displaying your CPS. So why don't we do that? So let's, underneath the message, let's put another ID, let's put another div. Let's call this, say, CPS. And let's have it be empty at first. Let me save. And now, when the timer, the 5-second timer finishes, and we display what your CPS is, why don't we do that not in the message div, but in a CPS? As you can see, I'm going to double click this to make sure I got the name exactly right. Yes, I did. So let me save that. Refresh, and I'm going to start clicking. I can click all I want, and your CPS is 4. Great, that looks good. But, well, we're going to center it and everything, but let's first do that. So go ahead and implement this. I'm going to take a screenshot again of this, just to help you figure out what you must do. Okay, here we go. So you need to add this div with the CPS, and you have to change this get element by ID. You have to say get the CPS element, not the message element. So do that and come back when you're done. Now let's make this here centered and looking very much like number of clicks. And we can do that by, again, going to our CSS file. And we could copy this and say CPS, save, refresh, and start clicking. And let's see. Yep, it's the same. We could do it this way, not a problem. But I'll show you a little trick. You can say that this style is not just for one element with this one ID. You can actually say comma count CPS. Okay, say I'm going to remove that. Now let's save, refresh, and let's see if it's nicely styled. Okay, and you can see it is centered and same font. So you basically what you're saying is that this styling applies to any element with an ID CPS or with an element of ID message. So that's a nice little trick. You can keep your file smaller. So go ahead, implement that. And that means that you have to, oops, wrong screenshot. All you have to is add this to your CSS file. So go ahead and come back when you're done. All right, what's next? I personally don't like it that, see how we display number of clicks, but we don't display the line for the CPS. And you see how the click me button moves down? So again, see, I'm clicking here, I'm clicking, and I'm not clicking anymore. Why? Well, because the button moved down. I don't like that. So how can we make this better? Well, we've done this before, I believe, and we can go in here and put a special code, and it's ampersand sign, which is above the number 7, non-blank, and oh my goodness, MAPS. I think I forgot what it is. Okay, no, that's not it. It's NBSB space. Let me see. Sorry. Okay. So this is a special code. Oops. You can see it means listen, put one empty space. Okay, so if I save and I refresh and I highlight, you can see how it's highlighted here. There's an empty space. So this meant that even though there's technically nothing in this div, the browser puts one little empty space. Now, what's the result of that? Well, the result of that even though there's nothing in here, you still have that line showing. So therefore, the button will not move when your CPS is displayed. So go ahead and do that. Add this thing. Be very careful. $sign over 7 NB. It's non-blank space. Again, this is coding. Unfortunately, you have to learn some of these obscure codes. But as you work more and more, you realize that you remember these things quite well. So go ahead, add this to your code, refresh to make sure it's working, come back when you're ready. Well, one thing that's, I guess, not the best is when you refresh, the timer starts running immediately. So it's not clear, like, oh, your CPS is 0. Well, I did not click anything yet. So maybe we want the timer to start when the user starts clicking. Because right now the timer is going and the user doesn't know this. User might take a long time, might take a while and start clicking now. And, well, it's not going to be a good CPS because they didn't click for the entire 5 seconds. They only clicked for the last 2 seconds. So that's not good. So maybe we should have the timer start the moment the person clicks the button. And that makes sense, right? So let's try that. What we could do is, first of all, where is the code that gets fired when the user clicks the button? Okay, so we have an event listener. When the button's clicked, call the code that's called clicked. And that's the function right here. Aha, so this is the code that gets run every time someone clicks. So what if we took this, I'll hide all of that, and we actually moved it. So let me cut. We moved it here. So therefore, the timer does not start until the user clicks the button. That kind of makes sense, right? So let's save and let's refresh and see what happens. So here I am. Okay, so the timer is not running, is it? 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Okay, so this is the CPS is not showing up. Let me just scroll down here a little bit. See all the code. So let me start clicking. And after I click, let's see if after 5 seconds the CPS is displayed. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000, 7, 1. Yes. Okay. It actually did show up. So let me refresh again. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. I'm counting the thousands much faster. But anyway, it displayed. But something weird is happening. Look at this. If I click, my CPS changed. Let's try this again. Let me just click. And look, I'm clicking and my CPS is changing. What's going on? Like, where are we displaying this CPS? I mean, we're not displaying it on the click. We're only displaying it on the 5 seconds being up. So this is the function that gets called once the timer is finished, and it goes down to 0, right, from the 5 seconds. But yet, if I refresh, if I do this, it seems like look, I'm clicking, and every time I click, this changes. And in fact, it's going up and up all the time. What's going on? Well, maybe you can spot the problem. Think about it this way. This function, this piece of code, gets run only once, only the first time a person clicks, or does it run every time a person clicks? If it runs every time the person clicks, that means every time you click, what do? We start a timer. So that is basically like Remember when we had this timer here? Why don't we do that here? And let's get a couple of timers. Okay. Don't worry, it's gonna make sense what I'm doing here. So every time a person clicks on the button, you start a separate timer. And all of these timers are running. And you see, they're all beeping at once. All right, I'm gonna turn them off because I'm gonna go crazy. Okay, good enough. So what's happening is every time a person clicks, a new timer gets started, and then this function gets called many times. In fact, it gets called for every timer. And if you don't believe me yet, why don't we debug? So I'm going to click F12 to get to developer tools. Again, if for some reason your F12 is not working, then here, more tools, developer tools. Now let's put a breakpoint here. And that way, whenever the timer is finished, or many timers, this function will be called. Now, if I'm right, this function will get called many times. So let's refresh and see what happens. Oh, okay, so first timer completed. So I'm going to say run. This button means just go ahead, run. And I'm stuck again. Why? Because all of these timers that I've started, they're all going to be what we call firing. They're all creating this event that says the time is up. And if I try to do this, as you can see, it's tons of them. I try to run it, and another one comes up, another one comes up. In fact, okay, so in fact, I probably launched the 14 timers. For every click, I launch a timer. What can we do about this? Let's think about this. So I like the idea that we are setting a timer when I start clicking. That makes sense to me. But we should only start one timer. How can we do this? For that, again, let's grab our trusty whiteboard and let's start thinking. Let's think, how would we say, if I wanted to kind of articulate, say what I should do, what is it that we want to say? We would like to say, start timer only once. Okay, maybe to be more precise, we want to start the timer on the first click. Okay, so let's take a look at our code here. Let's how can not make this smaller? Okay, that's better. So here we are in this click event. Here this code runs, and we are starting a timer on every click. But we want to start a timer on the first click. So let me ask yourself. Let's ask. Here, is there any way we know if this is the first click or second click? Think about this variable x. What are we storing in there? In the variable x, we are storing the number of clicks, the number of times that a person clicked the button. So if this is the first time a person is clicking the button, what should be the value of x? Well, we set the variable x to 0. And then the first time it gets clicked, we would increase it, we add 1 to it, and we make it 1. So therefore, if x is 0, that means that this is the first time we are clicking. So let's go back to the whiteboard. How would we write this? We would say something like if x is 0, start timer. Does that make sense? Well, we can write this in code. How would we write this in code? Let me try this. We can write something else. There is actually something called if. We say if x is, and I'll show you how this is 0, then, and we do that by showing a little squirrely bracket, then start timer, and we end it with the squirrely brackets. I'll show you in the code in a moment. So let's write this in code. We say if, and then you're saying, well, what are you checking? Okay, so if x is 0. Again, see this little weird two equal? This is actually the kind of equals you used to in math. We're asking if x is the same as 0. So if both of these sides are the same, then that's true. So if x is truly 0, then do something. How do? We use the squirrely brackets. The same brackets used here. You see how we're using brackets here to begin and end the code block? This is a function or a code block. And this is like, this gets called when we click on the button. But we can actually say, okay, if x is 0, then do something. And only the things in between those brackets will be executed. So what we can do is we can copy this, right click, I'm going to cut, and I'm going to put it in here, paste. So what that means that if x is 0, and that only happens on the first click, then set up a timer. Next time a person clicks, x will no longer be 0, it will be 1 or 2 or 3, in which case this whole area will be skipped. Let's run it and then we'll debug it and then we'll see how that looks. So first let's run it. Let me minimize that. Did I save? Yes. Let's refresh here. Okay, the timer is not going until I click. So let's see. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000. Okay, your clicks per second is 6. And if I keep clicking, look, it's not changing. The events are not firing. So that seems to be pretty good. Let's make it now full screen and I'm going to put F12. Let's debug this. Let's see how this works. So I'm going to make this bigger. And what I want to do is I'm going to put a breakpoint here. I want to see what happens the first time I click the button and what happens after. So let me refresh and I'm going to click. And when I click, I get a message, pause in a debugger, and it's telling me that this is the line that the program is executing, or that the browser is executing. So it's saying, if x is 0, run this. Well, is x 0? I can move my mouse over the x, and it should display 0. Is 0 the same as 0? Let's highlight this and let's find out. True? Yes, it's true. X is truly 0. If that's the case, the next line that will be executed will be this line. And I can test it by clicking this button right here. So I click it, and as you can see, I am now starting a timer. So if I click the next line, it's actually going here, and it's going to do its thing of counting and updating the number of clicks. What happens when I click again? I clicked again. Now, let's see. What's the value of x? X is 1. Is 1 the same as 0? Let's find out. I'm going to highlight this. True? No, it's false. So this is not true. So this line will never be executed. The program will automatically go to this line. It will skip that whole code block. Okay? So let's try that. Let me see. Click here. And there you go. This whole thing got skipped. and now we're doing our thing. So let's refresh again. So if I'm doing things correctly, then let's test it. Let's put a breakpoint here. Therefore, this time is up should only be executed once because we should be only setting up one timer. So let's see. Let me refresh here and start clicking. So I'm clicking like mad. Before we would set up a bunch of timers. Let's see. Okay, 5 seconds is up and the program is trying to run this line. We're going to say run, go ahead, and look at that, no more breaks. Not like before where the code constantly stopped, the program constantly would be stopping here because it will be constantly calling this function. Well, it's working correctly. So hope that makes sense. I would like you to implement this now. And I'm going to highlight what you have to do. So you need to build this code here, okay? And be very careful, put if, then you make sure you have that open bracket, then say x equals 0, then don't forget the closing bracket, then you need to have the opening squarely bracket and the closing bracket, and you have to move or just copy and paste this this line that used to be here, right? And we moved it to here. So go ahead, implement that, test it, and come back when you're finished. Okay. Well, so we're actually doing pretty good. I mean, we've got it pretty much working. I mean, calculating the CPS, it's working. But one thing I find very annoying, look how you click me and it actually selects the text here and it gives me a search. So I can do like a search. I don't even know what that is. That's not how a button looks like. Let's get rid of that. But how to get rid of this? Well, if you want to figure out how to do it, first ask yourself what's happening. What's happening is that we are selecting text inside a div. So maybe we should search how to not select the text in a div. So let's open our trusty W3 School. And I'll give you a link to this in comments. But I want you to do this. Go in here and say how to prevent text selection in a div. So our button, click me button right here, is a div, correct? And where did it go? And we're selecting the text. So maybe that sounds good. How to prevent text selection in a div. Let's search. And look at that. The first result, how to disable text selection in HTML CSS. That sounds about right. Let's click on that. And how to disable text selection. So if you look, it actually gives you the CSS to do this. Now let's make sure that it's exactly what we want. So I'm going to do try yourself and disable text selection. This text can be selected. This cannot be. Oh, look at that. I cannot select it. Good. So why? Because this is not a div, it's a P, and it says class prevent selection. Don't worry, I haven't explained this yet. And this is the CSS for it. So you can play around with it to kind of make sure this is what you want. And you can go back to here and you can actually just copy the CSS that that's here. So just copy. And then we can take it to our CSS file. And where is click me? Click me button. That's the click me, right? So I'm going to add this here. So let's see now. Move this here. Let's refresh. And nice. It's no longer selectable. That's much better. All right. So I would like you to go into this Learn to Code. Type in that search criteria that we had. How to prevent text selection in a div. and do a search and choose this how to disable text selection HTML and copy this, just the middle part. Don't copy this or the end bracket, just copy this and paste it here. So go ahead and do that and come back when you're done. Okay, another thing I would like to do is take a look how when something is clickable, like see these headers, see how the cursor is like this arrow, and the moment I can click on it, it changes to a hand? Because it's telling you, yeah, you can click it. But in our code, when I move the cursor on top of the click me button, it doesn't change to that. So, maybe we can change that with CSS. Well, let's try it. Let's go to our W3 schools and let's see. And what can we search for? I don't know, maybe say change the cursor to a hand. How about that? Let's see what happens. And we got this hover buttons, different things, but look at this CSS cursor property. What is that? CSS cursor property. CSS can generate a bunch of different mouse cursors. Okay. So this is not easy to read. I'm just showing you that this is a good source for, if you're looking for something, this is a good source, but sometimes it's a little bit tricky. Let's kind of scroll through and see syntax. Cursor value. And look at this. What is this? Alias, call, scroll. There's different cursors. And I can click play it. Let's see. Look at the alias. What is that? Play it. Aha. Oh, look at that. I can actually experiment with this. So I can change this cursor. And when I move the mouse over this area, the cursor displays. So cell. Aha. Context menu. So all these different cursors are basically going to be displayed. So what cursor do I want? Is there like a hand? Let's see, Control F, hand. No. Pointer maybe? Oh, there's something called pointer. Let's click on that and see. Oh, look at that. I get the hand. This is what I want. Now it actually gives me the CSS code. It says cursor, pointer. Okay, so let me try that. Let me go here and I'll say cursor. Oh, okay, cool. It is a CSS style that I can do. So I'll tab, semicolon here, and I see all the different types of cursors. And I'm pretty sure I can have lots of fun with it, but I'm going to say pointer. Okay, semicolon, and save. Let me go back here, refresh, and look at that. Now I have a hand. I know this is clickable. That's pretty good. So go ahead, implement this. For the div, for the click me div, add this cursor, pointer style and make sure that you have a nice hand icon when you move your mouse over the div. So go ahead, come back when you're done. Lastly, I don't like that the click me is touching my footer here. So I want to put some, not border, but some kind of a padding around it. And I can do that by, remember how we had this margin right, margin left? I can do, you know what, I can do margin bottom, and I'll put 20 pixels. Oops, PX, save, refresh, and okay, that's pretty cool. I think I'm satisfied with that. So if you don't have nice spacing, maybe you still have the line breaks. If you don't, please go ahead and add this so that it looks a little bit nicer. And you can also do a margin top, 20 pixels, if you feel it's better. So you will have a bit of kind of a buffer around it, so it doesn't look like everything's so cramped. So go ahead and add this if you'd like. It's up to you. Come back when you're done. I think the last step now would be to upload this code now to your spaces at W3 Schools. I'm not going to show it in the video. I've already showed it a number of times. I hope you remember. And if not, you can always go back to the other videos, and at the very end, there is step-by-step how to do that. So please upload into Spaces your latest code and make sure it is working. And I'll see you in the next video.